we have the new event for the Triple Cone Cup, giving you the top 1%, top 5% team that I'm excited to bring to you in today's episode to help you succeed against the Candy Golem. So thank you for tuning in as always. And before we do, go Parfadia. Let me know in the comments which house you're in support of and which house you're in, as always. So here we go to today's episode. It is against the Candy Golem, a breakdown of the Triple Cone Cup event. We'll give you the team, we'll give you the strategy. We're going to talk about this golem here, the Labyrinth Candy Golem to be exact, because there are a couple of key differences relative to last time, so we can make some shifts in our teams as well. And then additionally, I do have a top 5% score right now, as you can see with this record. Really, this team can get you to $1 billion, which does get you to that 1% right there, as you can see. So those are all key things that I want to share with you here today: the team, the strategy, the breakdowns, and all the tips and tricks, as we always do. Now, those timestamps are available to you, so feel free to use those. And let's get moving here, because we got a lot to get through. But before we do, if you happen to have a question or comment throughout today's episode, you let me know. I love to hear from you. Always let me know what's working, what's not. If you enjoy this, as always, whatever it is, I like to see it. So with that, don't forget, you can swing by the Discord server as well. All right, so here we go. Against the Candy Golem, the first piece here, as I mentioned, my team is currently a top 5% team. Now, really, the only difference is the power level. So we're at about 1.5 million. If you get this over 2 million, a little bit higher than that, 2.5, you are absolutely positively going to get over $1 billion in your score and make that top 1%. So that's a huge difference. So I like to show this as well, because not as many players might not have that ability. And we'll talk a little bit as I show you my team and some of the stuff that I have here in terms of the treasures, as you can see, in order to kind of make it fair, level set, those kinds of things, as always. The other key important factor, obviously, are the pieces on the right. A lot of it's going to be dependent on these key items. The main one is all periodic damage at 80%. Cooldown's nice, attack's nice, crit's nice, crit damage is nice, all those things. But having those three there are certainly going to make a huge difference. All periodic damage is most important. I'll talk about that here in a second. The other tip to understand is, don't worry about a high score until you get all these things here, max level, all to level 10. It will take a little bit of time. It can take a little bit of time, but the benefit there, as always, that I like to call out so that you understand and don't forget, is we do have the fight against the Candy Golem. It is worth it. You got 25 attempts to knock all this stuff out and get these great rewards here. So absolutely, like me, you can go ahead and do that and be rewarded for the fruit of your efforts, which is very important. So we've talked about those two considerations, things to keep in mind. Let's talk about the Golem now. So one big piece here with the Golem is certainly the passive here. Receives 20% more damage from fire, poison, light type attacks. Now, we'll talk about this a little bit more in the strategy. The other big missing piece here that we do see is there are no other baby golems. So it is a single target enemy. So that's also very important for you in terms of some of that strategy. Again, like I said at the beginning, can shift up some of your cookies that you're able to use against this particular boss. So now let's go check out the team. All right, boom. It is not this one. It is actually this one. This is the best team that I found to work for me after doing lots and lots of runs. Again, a lot of it's the makeup in terms of my team structure, potentially versus yours, kind of a thing. So certainly some of these swaps that we'll talk about here in a second can make a difference for you. And again, my power level is only 1.2. You get that way up, you're absolutely going to be able to do over $1 billion. As you can see, it's mostly my cookies here, not high level promotions. We got a lot of room for growth, no ascension as well, making a huge difference. Now, the other piece here in terms of the treasures are going to be the same thing. You can get all these to 12. That's going to make a huge difference. A couple of ones that you can swap in on the treasures before we go talk about the cookies. Absolutely Sleepyhead's Jelly Watch here, but I want to maximize, which is why I have that. We also have this one here. This Disciple Scroll might be higher level than this variant here, as an example for you. That's a consideration and a swap. You could consider Pin Cushion here. This is going to help Prune Juice. Prune Juice is a key makeup of this team as well. So really focused on attack, getting crit in there, those kinds of things. This is going to be very important in terms of which two kind of key cookies that you want to focus on and get that crit applied to. Now, the three core ones of your team here, and you can kind of rotate around depending on what you want to do, is really going to be Eclair Cookie, probably Prune Juice, because Prune Juice is going to be the best one here, and Prune Juice has certainly held Prune Juice's own against all these bosses. And last but not least here, our favorite friend, Milky Way Cookie. And one of the main reasons why we have Milky Way Cookie in here is the extra damage against the damage reduction here for 3.5% for 7 seconds. Boss games up to 3 times hits, stacking up to 25, which is really huge. We also have some stun resist and a few other things there that definitely help. So that's going to allow you to deal more damage because of the defense reduction, similar to Eclair. Think about the debuff here in terms of what's going on with the weakness received here, plus 25% damage for 40 seconds. The effect stacks up to 4 times as well. So very important in terms of those two. Again, the third piece of that being Prune Juice, dealing a ton of damage. Now, one of the reasons why we have more of a poison team focus is because poison tends to be more consistent relative to fire, relative to light as well. Now, I would probably say fire is going to be your second best there in terms of those elements and how you want to build, and we'll talk about that here in a second. The next key components here are certainly our buddy Shroomy. Shroomy does a ton of damage here, poison damage, extra damage against bosses and monsters, those kinds of things. Very important there. Certainly you could swap for something like an avocado cookie. You can also swap in here our other friend Black Licorice as well, being a big one there for you. Now, what I found to be very helpful is Captain Caviar. Now, here's one of the other reasons why this team's worked out really well for me. A lot of people forget about this. The Black Shark Torpedo has a nice damage reduction as well. Defense minus 42% for 8 seconds, stacks up to one time. So you could consider maybe moving a couple of these things around too. Make maybe him instead of Eclair, those kinds of things. Play with what's going to work for you. I think that's always important in terms of trying to maximize your cookies, the event relative to what you have available to you as well. I would also recommend, don't think about having to build these. Think about utilizing key pieces. Just because this event is kind of a fast thing and it could be one and done, might not be worth the investment for you as well. Unless you're in Parfadia, of course, make sure you make the investment. Because we want to win. No, I'm just kidding. In all seriousness, that's how you should think about some of these things. If you have the extra stuff to stockpile or behind to make these investments as cookies, these are always fun times to kind of do it. Certainly things that I consider myself, but again, that would be something to keep in mind. Now, in terms of some of the stuff that you can swap out, we mentioned a couple of those already. Affogato cookie, licorice cookie. The other option that you can do is, if you do want to go fire, you're going to want to go with our friend Capsation, as well as, and here's why, again, he's got that additional magma damage, fire damage buff right there for all the other damage, which is very important. And then additionally here with our friend Rye Cookie can put out a ton of damage, so those could be some considerations. Now, if you look at my other teams here, again, different style with Affogato, Prune Juice being the key component here. Again, a little bit more of a switch up in terms of what we have here as well. So those are all things that you can consider in terms of moving your team around. Obviously this one's 1.3, this one's 1.5, and oddly our 1.21 has worked out the best for us because that additional damage through the reduction there at the minus 42%. So that is all the tips and tricks. Let's talk about the toppings here for a second. So in terms of our team here, a lot of stuff that you can do differently. Certainly you see that I have a lot of the reset here. You can absolutely go into attack. So this will shift our team up, go into attack, again, into attack. Again, another consideration here in terms of building, if you have the extra resources to do it, absolutely go that way. Again, you can use the special toppings for Milky Way cookie and some of the other cookies that you may consider there as well in terms of some of those things. Big things to pay attention to is going to be crit. Absolutely on that. Cooldown can be very, very helpful as well. So all those are going to be key pieces for you. Now, when we switch over, that gives us about another 50k in terms of the power levels. So that's why I left that there so that you can see that specifically in terms of that switch. One other cookie that you can also consider moving in would be Moonlight Cookie. Can be a replacement for Eclair at times, and those kinds of things. So now we've talked about the team, we've talked about the toppings, we've talked about the treasures and key considerations in terms of taking down against the Candy Golem or the Labyrinth Candy Golem per se. Let's go ahead and make our run. We got the key components here in terms of our effects. I wanted to make sure I had that for you, so we didn't spend a ton of time clicking through that, but obviously you can go ahead and continue to generate what you need. All right, so let's go ahead and run it here with our friends. Again, other tips and tricks, always you can feel free. We need to make sure that we have all that stuff turned on. You can click all these as you're going as well to absolutely think about maximizing damage, timing your clicks, additional things like that, adding more to it here for your team as well. Now, most of your key damage, because of the stacking and everything else that happens in this particular team, is going to happen in roughly the last 10-20 seconds. As you can see, it's really starting to stack on for us. We will absolutely beat our record. We will maybe halfway to 1 billion. So again, huge differences there. Glad we could hit a new record for you here today live, getting closer to that 1%. But again, I certainly know that that difference is going to be the power level for us, and going to take some time for us to get. Now, let's go back, because we had an absolute blast here today against the Candy Golem, Labyrinth Candy Golem. We broke down the strategy objective of this boss, the event for the Triple Cone Cup, Go Parfadia. We talked about the random effects. We gave you the tips and the tricks about making sure you maximize the levels on these before you even worry about your score. We broke down the top 5% and the top 1%. We broke down the team that's going to get you there, gave you some swaps and some other ideas on team structure, and then we also talked about those treasures and the toppings. Whew, lots of things here to pull it back together for today. Thank you for tuning in. As always, again, if you have a question, if you have a comment, do let me know. I love to hear from you, and feel free to swing by the Discord server. With that, again, thank you for your support. As always, appreciate the likes and the subs as we continue to grow this amazing community. Please feel free to stay tuned, because we got a ton of content coming your way, and in the meantime, we got a ton here for you to check out. Best of luck in the Candy Golem, Go Parfadia. We'll see you again soon. Until next time, Mythras out of here.